My 28th birthday dinner was ruined when grandfather raised his glass. He delivered one sentence that instantly quieted the whole room. June, please tell us how you managed the $3 million trust fund over the last 25 years. Everyone stopped laughing immediately. Forks paused midair. Even the candle flame seemed fixed in place. I heard my own heart pounding loudly in my ears. I managed to whisper back. I was never given a trust fund. Grandfather's smile disappeared. His lawyer stepped up and dropped a heavy pile of financial records onto the table. The sound was loud. Before anyone spoke, I suddenly realized something. Someone at this table was terrified, and they should not have been. My name is June Hayes. I always believed being quiet made life simpler. Quiet daughters avoid conflicts. They do not disrupt the family harmony. In my family, harmony required everyone to pretend everything was fine, even when the foundation had long been damaged. I shared a small apartment in Portland with my roommate, Sasha. Sasha worked at a coffee shop nearby, so she always smelled faintly of spices and espresso. She was the only witness to my late-night work schedule. I was a freelancer doing UX contract work to pay my bills. This work was unreliable and seasonal. Sasha joked that I survived on coffee and pure stubbornness. She knew the truth. I had no one else to rely on. My parents lived in Lake Otsego across the lake. Their house was impressive, a perfect lawn, seasonal decorations, and high aspirations. My mother was obsessed with status and controlling everything. My father just agreed to everything to avoid arguments. My sister Maya seemed to drift through life easily, supported entirely by my parents, money, and affection. My sister received full tuition for private school and her own apartment, paid for completely so she could concentrate on studies. I, however, was told that developing independence was good for my character. Once I needed help signing a lease because my credit was too weak. My mother refused. "We cannot rescue you constantly, June," she said, implying I had asked for help repeatedly, which was false. I kept attending every family dinner and holiday. I did this because I still treasured the rare good memories. Grandfather Bernard was always a quiet presence. He had warm hands and a patient, soft voice. When I was 6, we walked near the water by the house. He told me, "I will ensure you are secure no matter what happens in the future." I held on to that promise deeply. I did not realize it was a critical piece of information. My mother insisted my 28th birthday dinner be simple yet formal. We had a private room at the restaurant. It had amber lighting, white linens, and tableware arranged perfectly, like a photo from a magazine. Everything felt artificial, similar to our stiff, polished, and slightly fake Thanksgiving photos. I arrived straight from work, wearing my trench coat, my hair slightly messy from the Portland wind. My mother glanced at me briefly. She then focused on smoothing my sister's hair instead. My sister smiled at me, completely ignorant of the real tensions running through the family. The dinner felt routine, like every other family gathering. My sister talked about her recent trips. My mother beamed at her. My father drank quietly. Grandfather watched everyone with an expression I could not understand. I maintained my usual composure, focusing intently on my meal rather than looking up at their faces. I did not realize it then, but grandfather was choosing the exact right moment. He was about to expose a secret that had been hidden by 25 years of deception. Everything appeared agonizingly standard at the table. The meal started with the usual slight insults. My mother commented on my resourcefulness. She used a specific tone that suggested my life was hard because of bad decisions, not bad luck. She smiled at the guests next to us. "June has always been very independent," she stated. "She never required much help from us." She presented this as a compliment, but it felt like I was being pushed away. My sister sat across from me, fiddling with a delicate gold bracelet, the type of expensive gift I never got. She started talking about a recent paid-for-weekend trip. My father laughed gently. He added, "She certainly earned that break." I was confused. My sister had actually been out of school for months, not working. I kept moving my food around on the plate, trying to stay calm. However, the old memories started flooding back instantly. I recalled the time my car failed on the freeway. I desperately begged my mother for assistance. I needed the car for work the next morning. "You are an adult now," she flatly responded. "Fix your own problems." I spent that entire night arranging tow services and maxing out a credit card I am still repaying. Another time in college, I couldn't afford my textbooks. I asked if they could help even with a small portion. "We cannot keep bailing you out," she had said. "It isn't fair to your sister." Meanwhile, my sister's high school Europe trip was fully financed before she even packed. Sitting there during the birthday meal, those incidents stopped being separate events. They combined into a clear pattern of behavior that I had avoided seeing for years. Grandfather observed me silently while the others talked. He always knew immediately if I was struggling, even when I tried to conceal it. The server poured more wine, and the noise level dropped slightly. Grandfather raised his glass. Then the moment arrived. "June," he asked softly, "tell everyone about the ways you used your $3 million trust fund over the last 25 years. The response was immediate and sharp. Laughter erupted. My sister giggled, thinking it was a joke. My mother's expression instantly shifted from confusion to outright fear, masked by a sudden stiff smile. My father dropped his glass onto the table with a clatter. I suddenly felt completely hollow inside. "What trust fund?" I asked. My grandfather's composure broke slightly. "The one I created for you when you were 3 years old." My throat seized up, but my voice was barely audible. "I never received one." Silence filled the room completely. My sister's smile vanished. My father clenched his jaw tight. My mother stared at me as if I had spoken nonsense. In that tense moment, I realized the truth was not simply missing. Someone had deliberately taken it. The dinner did not conclude. It shattered instantly. One moment, everyone was frozen still. The next, chairs scraped, voices overlapped, and the room felt too small for the lies starting to spill out. My mother recovered quickest. Her smile snapped back into place, looking forced and painful. "Dad," she began, addressing grandfather with a voice that was both overly sweet and sharp. "I believe June misunderstood. She can be so easily distracted, you know," she implied. I had imagined 28 years of independent struggle. My father coughed, his eyes fixed on his plate. My sister blinked repeatedly, trying to assemble a puzzle she did not know existed. Grandfather did not look at any of them. He focused entirely on me. "June," he said softly, "be at my office tomorrow at 10 a.m. It was a command, and that single sentence frightened all of us. I left the restaurant immediately before anyone could try to stop me. The cold Lake Otsego air hit my chest sharply. I kept walking past glowing windows, past other families celebrating loudly. I did not cry or shout. I just repeated the one sentence in my mind. I never received one. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking violently. My phone vibrated. It was Sasha. "How was dinner?" she texted. I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. My silence conveyed everything. "Just come home," she murmured in a voice message. "Whatever happened, we will figure it out." But I already sensed the truth. This was not a minor issue to be solved. This was something carefully concealed and meticulously buried for a very long time. The following morning, I took an early bus into downtown Portland. The city was still waking up. Fog hugged the streets and the streetlights were turning off. Grandfather's office occupied an upper floor of a glass skyscraper. It was quiet, warm, and smelled slightly of expensive leather and old books. He was sitting there in a leather chair, a file resting on his knee. His expression was not angry. It was worse. He looked deeply disappointed. "I established a trust fund for you when you were 3, he explained. It was $3 million intended to provide security, give you options, and shield you from hardship. He paused. You should have gained access the moment you turned 18. My heart sank immediately. 18. I had spent that birthday working a shift at a grocery store. Why didn't I know about this? My voice cracked. Why did they keep it from me? Grandfather handed me the folder. Inside was a preliminary audit report. It showed columns of transfers, withdrawals, bills, and payments. Most were suspicious and recurring. All were approved using the same 2 signatures, Victoria Hayes and Robert Hayes. My parents had done more than just hide the fund. They had systematically emptied it for 25 years. The payments covered their mortgage, home renovations, my sister Maya's apartment, her tuition, vacations, vehicle expenses, and luxury purchases. Everything that was always deemed too costly for me. A fierce heat started burning in my chest. Rage, profound grief, shame, and a cold realization twisted into a single painful knot. Every double shift I had worked, every plea for financial help, every time I had suppressed the feeling of being forgotten, none of it was destiny. It was deliberate theft. Grandfather leaned forward. "June," he said, "I have hired a legal team. My lawyer, Denton, will perform a complete audit, but you must decide how far you want to take this matter." I stared at the pages, looking at the neat signatures of the 2 people who were supposed to protect me most. "I want everything," I stated. "Every dollar, every receipt, every record. I want the full truth." Grandfather nodded once, his agreement slow and firm. "Then we will ask them to attend a meeting here." "I must be there," I insisted. "You absolutely will," he promised. For the first time in my life, I was neither the quiet daughter nor the neglected one. I was actively walking toward the conflict. This time, I knew I would not be the one getting hurt. The meeting was set for a Thursday afternoon. It was a cold Portland day with the sky looking like steel and the air feeling heavy. Grandfather insisted the discussion happen in a neutral conference room inside his building. He wanted every second of the coming confrontation documented, witnessed, and impossible to avoid. I arrived early. My hands were clammy despite the chill, but my walk was steady. Sasha had hugged me before I left our apartment. She said I looked ready for both a courtroom and a new beginning. I understood her comment when I saw my reflection in the elevator doors. My posture was straight, my expression calm. My eyes showed a new resolve I had never seen before. When the elevator opened, Denton, Grandfather's lawyer, was waiting. He looked exactly as he did when I first met him, tailored suit, neat gray hair, and a stack of papers held under his arm like a silent threat. He nodded, assessing my emotional state as stable enough for the situation ahead. "They are on their way," he confirmed. We both knew exactly who they meant. Inside the room, Grandfather sat at the head of the long wooden table. His face gave away nothing, but his tight jaw showed he had barely slept. When he saw me, his expression softened only slightly, but it was enough. He reached for my hand, gave a quick, firm squeeze, and released it. "You are not facing this alone today," he assured me. The door swung open. My parents walked in first. My mother, Victoria, moved quickly, her shoulders stiff. She wore the familiar mask she used whenever she needed to appear innocent. My father, Robert, followed quietly, glancing around the room as if searching for an escape route. My sister, Maya, came in behind them, gripping her purse. Her face showed a confusing mix of disbelief and worry. She had only been told there was a family problem that required clarification. Nobody told her. She was a key part of that problem. My mother immediately began speaking sharply. Father, I do not understand why you have dragged us into this formal setting. Grandfather simply held up a hand. Sit down. His voice was not loud, but the command was absolute. They sat down. Denton closed the door, walked to the middle of the room, and placed a very thick pile of statements onto the table. The resulting sound was a deep, unforgiving thud that echoed off the walls. Maya flinched visibly. My father swallowed hard. My mother's eyes widened immediately. These are your signatures, Denton stated. They cover 25 years of payments, transfers, and withdrawals. All were drawn from the trust fund intended specifically for June Hayes. The room became completely silent. Denton then started reading the audit aloud. Year 1, mortgage payments. Year 2, home repairs, kitchen renovation. He turned a page. Tuition payments not for June. Vehicle expenses, travel costs, credit card debts, and apartment rent for Maya Hayes. With every detail he read, a new clarity washed over me. It was no longer anger and certainly not joy. It was pure clarity, the kind you gain when a hidden picture is finally revealed in full light instead of the shadows you were shown. My mother's face lost all color. This is completely taken out of context, she claimed. Denton did not react. The context is financial abuse of a beneficiary. The audit is finalized. I stared directly at her. This was the woman who had always called me too sensitive throughout my childhood. She was not arguing with me. She was fighting to protect her image. My father finally spoke. His voice was thin. We used the money for the family. It was not intended to be personal. I laughed unintentionally before I could stop myself. Not personal. My hands shook slightly, but I kept my voice low and steady. When my car broke down and I begged for help, that was not personal. When I nearly dropped out of college because I couldn't afford textbooks, was that your definition of family? He recoiled as if I had struck him. My mother took a sharp breath, lifting her chin. June, we always planned to replace the money eventually. When I snapped back, when I turned 50 or never, grandfather leaned in, his gaze sharp and unwavering. You stole funds meant for a child. Her throat bobbed. Father, we had bills. Everyone has bills, he countered coldly. But not everyone robs their own daughter to pay them. Maya finally spoke up. Mom, Dad, you used her money for my school, for my apartment. Her voice broke slightly. Sweetheart, my mother said shakily to Maya. We just wanted you to have every chance. And I didn't, I whispered. My mother turned to me, her eyes filled with panic, not remorse. June, you were always so independent. You never required much. I leaned forward. I didn't ask because you trained me not to, because every single time I came to you, you made me feel like needing anything at all was a profound burden. The following silence was heavy. It was filled with everything they could no longer deny. Grandfather tapped the table once very firmly. I am immediately revoking your financial authority. My mother jolted upright. You cannot do that. I can, he stated coldly. And I already have. My father sagged into his seat, looking crushed by the weight of 25 years. Maya just stared at the table, covering her mouth. Denton slid a new set of documents toward me. This, he explained, transfers full control of the remaining trust assets to you. Your parents' access is permanently terminated. My hand hovered over the pen. For a moment, signing the document felt like accepting a definite truth. I pressed my name onto the page. My mother's chair scraped loudly as she suddenly stood up. June, please. This will destroy us. I looked up at her. I finally saw her clearly. Then maybe you should not have built your entire life using money that was never yours. Her mouth opened and then closed again. Her legs were shaking. My father tried to stabilize her, but his hand also trembled. They nearly collapsed. For the first time, I felt no guilt. I was no longer the quiet daughter trying to hold the family together. I was the one tearing down the whole structure of lies they had built. When the meeting concluded, the room felt empty. It was as if every lie had been physically scraped from the walls, leaving nowhere to hide. My parents exited first. My mother was shaking, and my father awkwardly guided her. My sister, Maya, hesitated. She stood there looking at me with guilt and something that resembled an apology. She started to speak, stopped, and finally whispered, "I didn't know anything, June." I simply nodded. It was not forgiveness, but it was not anger either. It was a starting point. Over the following weeks, everything changed rapidly. Denton finalized all the legal transfers. The remaining trust assets were secured under my name. My parents received official notification regarding potential civil lawsuits if they tried to interfere or hide further evidence of misuse. For the first time, they faced the full weight of their actions without protection. Grandfather visited me in my new condo. It was a modest place in Portland, but it felt truly mine in a way no previous space ever had. He walked slowly through the rooms, touching the walls and smiling with quiet satisfaction. "You deserve this," he stated. "You always deserved it." I did not tell him I cried my first night there. It was half grief for the family I never truly had and half relief for the life I could finally build. I spent more time near the water in the park. The winter air seemed to cleanse the lingering pain. I was not fully healed yet, but I was definitely not sinking anymore. For the first time, the silence around me felt like something I owned, not something that had been stolen. In the weeks following, I often thought about something grandfather had told me years ago. He said safety was not just about protection. It was about knowing who would stand by you when the truth emerged. I understood that now. Family is not determined by blood or a last name. It is defined by honesty, accountability, and the people who do not disappear when reality becomes inconvenient. I do not hate my parents. I likely never will. But I have learned that maintaining distance can be a form of self-love. Love for the peace I refuse to surrender again, and love for the life I am finally allowed to create. If you have ever had to step away from the people who should have cared for you most, remember you are not alone. Your boundaries matter. Your story matters. Share your experience in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please follow the channel so you won't miss the next one.